The boardroom was silent, save for the soft hum of the air conditioning, which did little to chase away the chill that had settled deep in Alexander Vale's chest. He sat at the head of the long mahogany table, the polished surface reflecting the sharp lines of his tailored suit and the cold precision of his posture. Outside, the city thrummed with life, lights flickering against the dusk sky, but inside, the world had narrowed to a single, unbearable reality, a marriage arranged by families whose influence rivaled even his own. Alexander had always believed in control. He controlled markets, boardrooms, and every public narrative surrounding his life. But control had its limits. Today, it felt fragile, irrelevant, like a glass poised at the edge of a table, ready to shatter under the weight of something neither money nor influence could mend. He glanced at the invitations lying neatly on the table, each one a reminder of expectations, obligations, and alliances carefully stitched together over years of meticulous planning. None of it mattered, not when he would soon recite vows to a woman he barely knew, a union forged in strategy rather than passion. The thought should have left him numb, and in part it did. Yet beneath the practiced detachment, something uneasy stirred, a faint, unnameable anticipation that unsettled him more than he would admit. Outside the window, the first stars began to pierce the evening sky, indifferent witnesses to human ritual. Alexander's hands tightened into fists on the table's edge. He was a man accustomed to facing crises, hostile takeovers, even personal betrayals with icy composure. But this orchestrated exchange of hearts and names, felt like stepping onto a battlefield with no rules, no tactics, only an unknown opponent who could not be predicted or measured. He inhaled slowly, willing himself to steel against disappointment, against the emptiness he anticipated in the coming hours. And yet, deep within, a flicker of curiosity dared to intrude. What would she be like? Would she be as controlled, as precise, as untouchable as he was? Or might there be something unplanned, something real, hidden beneath the careful veil of ceremony and expectation? The ceremony hall shimmered under golden chandeliers, each crystal casting prismatic light that danced across polished floors and silk-draped walls. Guests whispered softly, their curiosity restrained by etiquette, but their glances flicked repeatedly toward the far end of the aisle, where the bride would soon appear. And then she entered. Every step was deliberate, measured, as though she were aware of the invisible weight of tradition pressing down upon her. Her gown flowed like liquid moonlight, embroidered with patterns that caught the light in subtle flashes. The veil covered her face, a delicate lattice of lace that hid her features but could not conceal her presence. She moved with a grace that seemed almost otherworldly, poised yet not stiff, quiet yet undeniably commanding attention. Alexander's gaze, though he tried to restrain it, followed her every step. He had anticipated boredom, disinterest, perhaps even resentment at the performative nature of this union. Instead, he felt an unexpected pull, a quiet recognition of a presence that did not demand attention yet could not be ignored. He had faced investors who manipulated markets with a glance, rivals who wielded words like weapons, and adversaries who shattered empires with strategy alone, but never had a single human being unsettled him like this. She did not look at him, not yet. Her eyes were lowered, lips set in calm resolve, hands folded lightly at her front. There was humility in her posture, yes, but also strength, an understated authority that made him pause. It was clear, she understood the world she was stepping into, yet she carried herself as if she had already negotiated the terms in her own mind. Alexander shifted slightly in his seat, a faint tension threading through his otherwise controlled demeanor. For the first time in years, he questioned the clarity of his own expectations. This was supposed to be a ceremony of obligation, a simple transaction of names and families, yet he found himself unprepared for the quiet power emanating from the woman beneath the veil. Each step she took seemed to slow time itself. The murmurs of the room faded into the background, leaving only the faint echo of her movement and the strange, unfamiliar stirring in his chest, a mix of curiosity, admiration, and something dangerously close to desire. And still, her face remained hidden. The officiant's voice droned on, reciting the customary words with meticulous rhythm, a litany Alexander had heard countless times in rehearsals and arrangements alike. His own voice followed automatically, precise, controlled, every syllable perfect, every intonation measured. He had mastered this performance long ago. He could recite vows without thought, his mind wandering to market forecasts or architectural plans while his lips fulfilled duty. But then came the final moments, the crescendo of tradition, the part where the bride would lift her veil. A formality, a gesture as predictable as the passing of time, or so he thought. Her fingers lifted the delicate lace, slow, deliberate, as though she were aware that a single motion could alter more than appearances. Alexander felt his breath hitch unexpectedly, as though the world itself had paused. The veil fell away, revealing her face, and with it, the first true glimpse of the woman he was to marry. It was not beauty alone that struck him. He had seen many beautiful faces in his life, faces that adorned magazine covers, gala invitations, and glossy ads. No, it was the honesty in her eyes, the quiet clarity that radiated without effort. They were eyes that held neither calculation nor artifice, eyes that looked directly at him and refused to look away. In that gaze, Alexander sensed a depth he had long avoided, the kind of depth that could unbalance even the most fortified man. For the first time in years, strategy faltered. Contracts, obligations, social expectations, all of it melted into irrelevance. His carefully constructed world, built on numbers and negotiation, seemed to tilt, if only slightly, under the gravity of her presence. He noticed the subtle rise of her cheeks, the faint curve of her lips, the way her breath caught as she met his gaze fully for the first time. Every instinct he had honed over decades, the instinct to control, to calculate, to anticipate, was rendered useless. He was still, silent, unmoored, the room around him blurred. Guests' whispers, the chandeliers, glint, even the officiant's voice faded into insignificance. All that remained was her, revealed not just in appearance, but in essence. In that suspended moment, Alexander understood that nothing in his meticulously ordered life had prepared him for this, the sudden, undeniable, unplanned pull of human connection. And for the first time, he wondered if this marriage, arranged and strategic though it was, might not be a mere transaction after all. Perhaps, in the unlikeliest of ways, it could become something entirely unexpected, something real. The silence that followed was not empty. It vibrated with a weight that neither Alexander nor anyone in the room could name, a quiet energy that seemed to suspend time itself. The guests, trained in polite observation, remained frozen, unsure whether to speak, to breathe, to move. Even the officiant faltered, his practiced cadence stuttering under the gravity of the moment. Alexander, seated at the head of the table, felt a strange stillness descend upon him. For a man who had commanded empires, dictated markets, and maneuvered through treacherous social battlegrounds, it was disorienting. The veil had not merely fallen, it had lifted more than lace, it had lifted the veil from his own assumptions, his own carefully barricaded heart. He studied her face again, committing every detail to memory, the way her eyes shone with quiet certainty, the subtle curve of her lips that hinted at emotions she did not yet reveal, the soft strength in her posture that made him question everything he thought he knew about control and power. She was not merely beautiful, she was real, undeniable, and alive in a way that demanded recognition. For the first time in decades, Alexander allowed himself to be present, fully and unreservedly. He felt the echo of something he had long denied himself, wonder. Desire. A fragile, tremulous hope that had no place in boardrooms, no place in contracts, no place in the spreadsheets of his meticulously ordered life. Yet here it was, insistently. He could feel it in his chest, a subtle, insistent rhythm that matched the unspoken understanding in her gaze. There was no declaration, no words were exchanged, and yet everything had shifted. The future he had planned with such precision suddenly seemed both terrifying and exhilaratingly uncertain. The room around them, once a stage for ceremony, faded into background noise. Only she existed, only the silent exchange that had passed between them in a glance. And Alexander, the man who had thought himself unshakable, realized that he had been waiting his entire life for this precise moment, though he had never known it. As the first, almost imperceptible smile curved her lips, something inside him responded. It was subtle, quiet, but unmistakable, a recognition that love, or at least the possibility of it, could exist even in the most calculated, arranged of unions. Perhaps this marriage, long anticipated as an empty formality, could instead become the beginning of something wholly unexpected, something that might finally challenge the walls he had built around himself. Alexander remained still, absorbing it all. And for the first time, he did not resist.